Our next speaker is with us, Mr. Suleiman Barada, Senior Advisor and Head of UAB Digital at the Union of Arab Banks. Speaking on today's topic, the Arab region, CBDC Launchpad, the socio-economic motivations for accelerated pan-Arab adoption. Over to you, Mr. Suleiman.
Good afternoon, Melwin. Thank you very much for having me again. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, especially to our audience from Qatar. Very happy and pleased to be taking part on this important event today. Very emotionally excited as well to be part of the developments in Qatar around fintech and digital banking. What I'm going to be presenting today is the most recent developments on the central bank digital currencies front in the Arab region, and an initiative and I will shed the light on an initiative that's being driven by UAB Digital around CBDC. I'll brief you all about what that initiative is and where we stand with it and how we intend to serve and develop the Arab central bank digital currencies agenda for the greater good of the region. A little bit of so the table of contents, what the challenge is, the value proposition, the project phases, and of course the impact we intend to realize in the region from deploying CBDCs at scale. Starting with who we are, just a little bit of background about the Union of Arab Banks and UAB Digital. So the Union of Arab Banks is the representative association of the Arab banking sector. It's been around for over 4 decades, and it does advocate and develop and facilitate multi-stakeholder dialogues and conversations between the various actors within the financial services and the banking sector in the players in the region. We also work very closely with our peers and counterparts in the international community, other unions around the world, and authorities such as the IMF, the World Bank Group, and other global associations that are active and influencing the financial services arena. Definitely, the union's geography spans the entire Arab region, the 20+ Arab countries. UAB Digital is the union's arm. Is the union's ecosystem digital transformation arm, and it was established around 15 months ago in April 2020, with a mandate to elevate the state of digital transformation and banking innovation within and across the UAB member base. We do that. We execute on our mandate through four initiatives: UAB Digital Institute, which is the capacity building arm of UAB Digital, through which we extend knowledge and practitioner education to all our member banks and their staff. UAB Digital Online, the second initiative, is UAB Digital Online Banking Innovation Platform, where we connect banking innovators, fintechs, and the likes with the incumbent banks in the region to work in a collaborative manner to serve the mutual interest of both communities. UAB Digital Launchpad is our platform through which we accelerate efforts around the main movements, in the financial services sector, be it open banking, central bank digital currencies, and other initiatives as well. UAB Digital Insights Lab is our fourth pillar, which is a research capability that executes benchmarks and develops benchmarks, analyst reports around and many other assets around digital transformation in the financial services sector in the Arab region. Moving on with the topic, the CBDC, the Arab CBDC launchpad. So the Arab CBDC launchpad existed to solve a problem and to serve the Arab central bank digital currencies agenda. We know that countries in our region are already either at early stage of thinking CBDC or have already progressed to making some design choices, or maybe preparing for some pilot deployments of CBDC in various countries. The Arab CBDC launchpad that's led by UAB Digital is existed to serve the interest of the Arab central banks and commercial banks equally, so they can all embark on early enough on the CBDC on a CBDC undertaking without having to overinvest on the topic, and with following an incremental approach to a CBDC deployment. So that's the value proposition. The challenge, or the CBDC through the lens of the central banks. Every central bank in the region, and maybe globally, these are common observations and common aspirations of central banks all over the world. We have been also researching and having conversations with various central banks in the world around their CBDC initiatives and CBDC projects, and we've observed and analyzed their motivations and picked really what is common across the majority of them. So every central bank would want to achieve a resilient payments landscape from a CBDC investment, avoiding the risks of new forms of private money creation that's growing outside of the traditional monetary system and outside the pockets of the central banks. That's one key motivation of pursuing a CBDC deployment. Supporting competition, efficiency, and innovation in the payment systems also is driving central banks to pursue CBDC. Meeting future payment needs in a digital economy. I think most of the countries globally have already embarked on some sort of digital economic development activities, and central banks really sit at the core of those efforts. Payment systems also are key enablers to digital economies, and without agility in those payment systems, and without agility in the new forms of monetary systems, digital economies might struggle, and therefore CBDC is being looked at as one key enabler of better of higher agility in those payment systems. Improving the availability and usability of central bank money is certainly on the list of motivations to lower the cost of settlements, whether in country or cross-border. Addressing the consequences of declining cash is driving several countries' motivations towards CBDC, enabling better cross-border payments through with trade, be it around trade finance, liquidity, settlement, and KYC and AML, and all the inherent capabilities that CBDC would bring to the table with regards to eKYC and high level of automation in encountering illicit finance at in a broader sense. Design considerations for CBDC. Any CBDC system would need to be designed with a clear use case in mind. So before really embarking on a CBDC movement, the use cases will have to be identified, and those use cases will have to be derived from the national context. And there is no one size fits all when it comes to a CBDC deployment for every country. So every country would have to identify the national motivations, the national objectives, and make sure that those are linked to the socioeconomic objectives of that country, and then from there, designing making the design choices and the implementation pathways of the CBDC deployment. So the overall objective should set the core design principles, which in turn determine our design, our choices around economic design, functionalities, provision, and technology. So really, the message that I'm trying to get through here is that CBDC deployment is not a technology product. It's a national socioeconomic undertaking, and that's why it needs to start with those national use cases in mind, and then those national use cases should translate into the technology initiatives that could help fulfill those national objectives. Elaborating further on the national business case. So how do we rationalize the national business case around CBDC? By considering the socioeconomic motivations, by looking at the national design considerations around policies, priorities, constraints, and dependencies. All of that have to be consumed into our CBDC business case before it gets into any technology discussion. Cross-border pan-Arab interoperability considerations. So while we're designing and rationalizing our CBDC business case, it is worthwhile to consider our aspirations from that CBDC when it comes to cross-border facilitating cross-border payments, because it is ideal to be addressed at design stage rather than in later retrofit after it's been designed and implemented, because the cost then to do it in a retroactive way in a retrofit would be much higher than doing it at early stages of design. Considering the design choices as part of the business case, road mapping based on the design choices made, and then developing the implementation pathways from those design choices and in accordance with the roadmap. Definitely, the roadmap will have to take into consideration the incremental approach to CBDC. And again, my advice to all our peers in the region is that we do not follow a big bang approach to CBDC. It needs to take the technology adoption one step at a time and follow an incremental way in benefits realization, national benefits realization. Zooming into the socioeconomic motivations from the business case, those could be many. And this list here is not intended to be an exhaustive list, but these are key socioeconomic motivations that could be validated for every country in our region. Not every motivation necessarily apply to every country. Enabling the digital economy. So if that country would want to accelerate efforts in creating a competitive digital economy, and that is being already acted upon by the local government and the leadership, the national leadership, then this could be considered as one of the socioeconomic motivations. Achieving inclusion is one key common socioeconomic motivation for the entire region. Reinforcing the position of the local currency through its digital form for countries whose currency have been under pressure and are considering CBDC to relieve that some of that pressure through the digital form of that currency. Improving the agility of the payment system and methods, both for intra and international payments. Countering the risks associated with trading and exchanging non-central bank currencies. That's a growing concern of all the central bank and the monetary authorities worldwide, enabling frictionless cross-industry financial cooperation within the context of the digital economy of those countries pursuing CBDC, thereby allowing financial institutions and non-financial institutions to work together on an interoperable payment and monetary system, leveraging the power of DLT to counter illicit finance. DLT, the digital distributed ledger technology, comes with a wealth of capabilities that could help us as financial authorities counter illicit finance in a more efficient way, enhancing the access to finance and establishing tech-enabled traceability that allows for better monetary governance in alignment with national and regional socioeconomic indicators. So all of that together and our efforts at the Union of Arab Banks, UAB Digital, with our partners R3 and Industria, have led to the development of a value proposition, which is the Arab CBDC Launchpad, that allows central banks and commercial banks to embark on a CBDC undertaking, with an approach that takes that takes the participants through a journey of CBDC implementation that promotes an incremental way to technology adoption, all based on the R3 CBDC sandbox, which is developed by R3. Built on top of that, several add-on components by Industria, our R3's partner, through a variety of components that could enable that CBDC launchpad to move and address the various use cases that a country would want to adopt. And UAB Digital would bring on top of that the training and certification, the knowledge base, deployment patterns that can be shared amongst various countries in the region, and the norms and governance patterns that could be also shared across the ecosystem. The whole CBDC Launchpad is based on the R3 Corda Open Core, which is the underlying technology, and it starts with a POC as a service that ourselves at the Union through UAB Digital, R3 and Industria would work with a central bank in the region to deliver a POC as a service, and minimal investment that's done by the participant central bank to build their own capacity, and then from there we onboard participant banks from that jurisdiction, okay, to deliver use cases around wholesale, retail, and other use cases from that apply to the local context. The sandbox would also serve stablecoin and public DLT extensions, and built on top of that is Industria's AI modular API and Industria's modular API for retail payment and instant settlement, and smart contracts as well. The modular assembly has 5 key components: the CBDC conceptual model, taxonomy, features and design, and securities settlement systems, cross-border payments, and general payments, purpose payments. So all of that is shipped with the sandbox that's provided by R3. And we follow a phased approach. With phase 1 is where we build the capacity of the central bank and the core CBDC team of that central bank, and we call it the policy design support. It is always possible to design and make policies around technologies, but the best policies are made only after the technologies have been explored. So that's why phase one is where we deploy the R3 sandbox through one single node that the CBDC team of that central banks could explore, and then the policies could be made afterwards, only after they have explored enough of the technology, they've understood the technology architecture, and they've rationalized the choices of that CBDC capabilities. Phase two is where the policy design and capacity building phase is concluded, and then a proof of concept could be really developed to deliver value to the central bank and the participating entities. Phase three is where customizations could be developed on top of the sandbox, and an MVP, a minimum viable product that takes into consideration the national objectives, could be developed and then subsequently launched. And there has been, there could be several iterations of MVPs, again, because we follow an incremental approach to it. So we expect several MVPs to be developed. Each MVP could address one or more national use cases. Phase four is where CBDC could be deemed to be implemented at scale with several use cases already deployed, and several MVPs already went into production at scale. The phased approach is through this diagram. Again, phase one is 3 to 4 weeks. Phase two is 6 to 8 weeks. Phase three is 10 to 12 weeks. The full launch may vary from one jurisdiction to another, depending on the number of use cases that a jurisdiction would want to implement on their CBDC. So really, the phase four timeline is a variable. But what we are focusing on now at UAB Digital with the central banks in the region and the commercial banks in the region is phase one. And this is where we would deploy a vanilla CBDC sandbox and allow for capacity building activities to be conducted within the central bank and by the central bank's CBDC team and payments team and technology team, so they can serve the requirements of phase two better. And phase two is when the other participants from the local financial ecosystem are invited to join the efforts with the central bank for the central bank digital currency use cases. Again, what would happen, what would typically happen within a phase one the capacity building and policy design support is initially we start with in the first week is where we conduct a technical and commercial workshop sessions with the central bank's team and some participants or representatives from the local, and that is optional really, from the local banking sector. And week two is the single node deployment of that sandbox. Week four is where the sandbox is presented to the C-suite of the central bank. And week six is where the proof of concept is planned, and cooperation between the delivery partners, in our case UAB Digital, R3, and Industria, and the CBDC team of that central bank are agreed. Week 8 is where lessons learned and the scope of week 2 is of phase 2 are documented. The reference architecture is of the CBDC sandbox takes into consideration all the various actors within the local banking sector. The central bank definitely sitting at the core of this, with commercial banks handshaking with the central bank around issuance and redemption, and wholesale transactions happening in between the commercial banks, and the retail transactions also happening between the commercial banks and the end constituents. So that is the framework of the CBDC sandbox. It addresses all the various use cases and all the interactions between the various actors within the financial services ecosystem of a given jurisdiction. The impact that we would want to achieve from the CBDC sandbox is, and because we've broken it down into 4 phases, with phase 1 giving a taste of the technology to the central banks that enables them to immediately get on and deploy CBDC efforts. We intend to create impact on payments, on the monetary system and the financial stability of those countries pursuing the CBDC, impact on the technology orientation, and collaboration between the various actors within the ecosystem to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals. With that, I am going to conclude my intervention, stopping to share. And sorry if I have taken more time, Melwin, to deliver that my statement.
Thank you, Mr. Suleiman, for your presentation. Attendees, if you have any questions for Mr. Suleiman, please do send it over to us and we will get it answered by Mr. Suleiman. Thank you, Mr. Suleiman, and hope to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.